Welcome to Body Efficiency Training, and in this video we're doing some short stick sparring. Now I call this snake style kung fu, but it's not really that. It's just simply the ability to move your body like a snake. So you can also think of this as eskrima or even sistema or even tai chi short stick fighting. And it's a very friendly careful fight because we've got no gloves on, and if you get hit on the fingers with a stick it's extremely painful. And I call this snake style kung fu because we really want the ability to move our body like a snake, and all martial arts require that. Now the short stick is really just an extension of our body, an extension of our kinetic chain. So we are using our whole body as a single unit and trying to flow through that single unit and extend it out into the short stick. So the wrist needs to be very loose, very fluid. The stick has got to be rotate. And you think of the stick as an extension of your arm. So there's one more joint, and the joint is the wrist and the fingers. And that leads out to one more degree of freedom, one more thing that moves at the end of your arm. And as you can see, this could also be thought of as fencing. There's not much of a step from here to a Tai Chi sword, say, or a fencing rapier. So it's all one and the same thing. And in fact, martial arts is really that. Martial arts is ultimately just combat. And in combat, you've just got to do whatever the hell you can do. And this is what we're working on. So it's a very friendly fight. We're only sparring, we're only playing, and we're trying to practice all sorts of movements with the stick. So we hold the stick in all different ways, all different positions, and in fact, most importantly, we've got to be ambidextrous. And you'll see that I switch the stick from the left hand to the right hand quite regularly. And if we can do this, it's extremely efficient, because wherever you are, you can hold the stick in a different position. And you can see there now I'm holding the stick with my left hand in the middle. And this is a bit like a drummer. A drummer spins the drumsticks around like this. So there are different benefits from each way you hold the stick. So here I've got to be more careful because my hand is in the middle, so my fingers can get hit, but from the middle you've got both sides of the stick available. And now I've gone back to the right hand, and if you can see, you watch, the wrist is quite loose and free, and it flows. The stick has got to roll and spin. Now you might wonder, what's the point of spinning the stick all over the place, because how is that useful? Well, it's useful because you've got to be able to move in all different directions and create a little whip out at the end of the stick. So all this stick spinning and practice, okay, is not for show. It means in the middle of the fight, when your stick is hit, it moves fast. And if your wrist is not fluid, if you're not able to roll it around, then what happens is you lose the stick. So if I take a strong impact on one end of the stick spins round, but I'm able to spin round with the stick and keep hold of it. And it allows you to create a little whip at the end of the kinetic chain. So the kinetic chain comes from the spine, the whole body. So I've got to maintain as best body structure as I can possibly maintain. The hands and legs have got to be free and light, and all the strength is in the core, the spine, and the chi belt. The chi belt is the waistline. And ultimately this is what we're doing. We're working on body efficiency training. So although this is clearly martial arts is not really the focus of this training. The focus of this training is body efficiency. In other words, how can I use my body in the most efficient manner? And this applies to everything, how to stand up, how to sit down, how to do functional movements, and ultimately applies to martial arts or complete freedom of movement, even dancing. This is also very dancing-like. You can see the rolling of the baton, dancers do that, and it's the same sort of skill, but this has a slightly different purpose, because we've got to respond instantly and spontaneously to an attack or a force coming towards us. And we're also moving here to slight grappling, because you've got to use both hands, and if the stick is not available, well, then you use your hand. And now we're doing the whole thing again in slow motion, so you can see a bit better what was going on. But we're not doing full speed. Of course, full speed fighting is different again, but it's very high risk because we don't want to hurt each other, and we've got no gloves on. We're just practicing freedom of movement. And the freedom of movement and the flow, or the kinetic chain, or the snake-like waving is extremely efficient. And this is the beginning of speed. To create speed, we need relaxation and we need flow. And we need to flow a kinetic chain. So a kinetic chain is a sequence of links, and when you move one end of it, it flows down like a whip and moves to the other end. And this is exactly what we're doing with the stick. We've got to create a whip right to the tip of the end of the stick, and that's the point that makes contact. And if you can do that, you can create a whip from your spine, down your shoulder, elbow, wrist, and even fingers, because the grip I've got is often quite loose. You saw it there, it's quite loose. I'm only holding between the first finger and the thumb, ultimately. That's all you need, because the opening and closing of the hand allows even more movement. Now, you might think that's risky, but if you've got the ability to spin the stick in all directions, it's actually not risky, because you won't lose the stick. The stick will move, and you will move with the stick, and you'll move it into another circle and into another whip back to another attack. So there you can see a lot of this twisting, rolling. There you go, a nice little backwards roll, down and up, and there I blocked fast because he came in and took the stick away from him, and that only happened because I got him right at the edge of the stick, and in a way it's quite lucky, otherwise I would have hit his fingers. But of course in real life you do want to hit the fingers. The fingers are a legitimate target, and if you hit the other person's fingers, well, they can't hold the stick anymore. But we're not doing that. At the moment we're doing very careful, very friendly sparring, and we're trying to keep the fight flowing. We're trying to keep it moving. We're both just practicing responses and movements, freedom of movements, relaxation, and we're concentrating on our own body. We're not so much worried about the other person as we're worried about ourselves. We've got to be aware of our own structure and our own movement and feel inside our body. So the whole point of this body efficiency training, and why I call this snake style kung fu, is because we're trying to unify our whole body into a single structure. And ultimately this works for power. If you want power, the whole body has got to come into play, and you utilize the joints in sequence through your body with tension to create power. And it applies to speed. You unify the whole body with relaxation and flow to create a whip, and this also creates speed. And of course ultimately a whip is both speed and power, but it's very efficient power, because you don't do much work. You have to allow the whip, the movement, to take place, and if you get the movement right, the whip right at the end is extremely powerful. A whip is an acceleration, so you have to feel that. It's very difficult, and there's a lot of practice to do that, and we have to practice slowly and carefully. And there you can see again moving from left hand to right hand, and a lot of martial arts is one-sided. One hand holds the sword, one hand holds the stick, but that's not good enough. We've got to be completely ambidextrous, completely free, and we've got to be able to hold the weapon in all different ways so that you can be free and do whatever's required at the instant it is required. And sometimes that is switching from left hand to right hand to change your distance or take the strike that you've got the opportunity for. So one hand is not good enough, and of course in fighting, if you've struck on one arm, well, you haven't got that arm anymore. You've got to be able to use the other arm now. And of course you've also got legs, but we're not worrying about legs in this. We're just concentrating on the short stick. There you can see the drummer spin, and again this one is a bit more risky because your hand is right in the middle, and you're more likely to get struck on the fingers than if your hand is at the end. And you see my partner there is holding the hand with a little bit of a stick at the end, but you'll see I do that, but I also hold the stick right at the end, so I have maximum extension of the stick. And again, we grab in the opponent's stick, but we're keeping the fight going. We're not trying to end the fight, we're trying to get a flow going. So this you can also think of as martial dancing. And now I'm holding the stick with a backwards spin. So again, another different way of using the stick. There you saw my hand open right up to allow the movement. You're also poking, stabbing, that's important. But see how I move the whole body. I'm shifting weight from one foot to the other foot, trying to maintain the natural S-curve of the spine and extend outwards from there. But we're not doing full power, we're just practicing flow and movement, and this eventually will become power. So the snake is extremely efficient. A snake is a single spine, is like a spine, and it's connected with muscles. So we are effectively 5 snakes. We have a spine, which is one snake, 2 arms, each is a snake, and 2 legs, which is a snake. And we're trying to unify our body into this freedom and fluid movement. And we're going up, we're going down. And you can see lots of different techniques here, moving towards, there you go, this could have become a choke, or you can even whip the stick right backwards behind your opponent to hit them on the back of the head, and this is why you need that full spin. Now you can see I'm holding the stick right at the end, when he's got it not quite at the end. You see, if you have it not quite at the end, there's a little bit of the stick left that you can also use. Now we're both holding the stick evenly, the same way, but holding the stick right at the end will give me maximum extension, but of course I've got to be careful not to lose it. Holding the stick in the middle, I've got least amount of extension, but I've got two sides of the stick that I can use. And you can see also how my feet go up and down to counterbalance. You see, the spine is the important bit, the core. You've got to keep the spine as close to its neutral position as possible in the S-curve. But I'm also using the spine. You see, I'm also hunching slightly forward to create extension, and also leaning back to evade. But ultimately, as you can see here, I'm quite vertical. And you use the legs, there you go, the leg comes up to create a whip counterbalance through the spine to move out the stick, and the stick goes up and down nice and easily, all different directions, and then once more into a poke and then into a flow. Changing hands, now back to the left hand. So it's got to be seamless. You've got to be able to switch hands seamlessly so your opponent doesn't even know which hand you're using. And you can see lots of strikes, and it's not only that, we're not trying to create direct impact. There's a slide. When you're creating a whip and you're creating a circle, the stick slides against the other stick. And when we do swords, which will be coming at some point, you'll see sliding the weapon is more efficient than just hitting edge to edge of the blade. But sliding allows the reduction in pressure so you don't have the full force hitting the stick, but it's just enough to deflect the stick. And there we have a bit of fun. There we go, trying to get him into grappling, but the fight is over and he's got both sticks, so in the end he won. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.